Namaskar. We were talking about bonding of karma in the last class, and we studied how different kinds of karma bond with the soul. I also told you that the soul has power of free will, and it is able to overcome the effects of karma. It can even destroy karma. So karma is not the master, soul is the master. So we'll talk a little more about this aspect today. We'll study what are 7 tattvas, or 7 fundamental truths as we call them. So it's a fundamental principle of life, it is true, it's always true. And it's the ultimate truth because it happens. There are 7 tattvas: Jeev, that is soul; Ajeev, Pudgal; Ashra, inflow of karma; Bandh, that is bonding of karma; Samar, or stopping of karma, stopping of inflow of karma; Nirjara, or what called shedding of karma; and Moksha, or liberation or nirvana. These are 7 fundamental truths, and these are facts of life. We know that Jeev is a fact, Jeev exists. We know Pudgal is a fact, Pudgal exists. So we have studied about these 2 tattvas in our previous lectures. Today we shall talk about the remaining ones, remaining 5 tattvas or fundamental truths. The first one is ashra. What is ashra? Ashra is inflow of karma into the soul. There are 2 types of ashra. One we call as bhava ashra, and another we call as a dravya ashra. We must understand these 2 clearly. What is bhava ashra? When the karmas are inflowing, they leave an impression on the soul, as I told you earlier. And that impression carries the information of the activities which are being performed by the soul. And the activities are normally in the form of physical activity or mental activity or verbal activity. So whatever activity is being performed by the soul, there is a karma inflow, and that leaves an impression on the soul. What is the form of this impression, we do not know. There is some system present by which the soul remembers, what action has been performed. So this is supposed to be an impurity in the soul, because this kind of information which is collected in the soul works as a cloud on the natural powers of the soul, so that the natural powers of the soul are not manifested, they are not experienced. But nevertheless, some kind of system is present by which soul remembers the activities. And of course, as you know, because we have had infinite number of births in the past, so information of all births, for that matter, is present in the soul in the form of bhava ashra. Even if the karmas are eliminated, as we will study just now, the information, I think, is still present in the soul. Not in the form of karma, but just as some kind of memory, I think. And there is a dravya ashra, means whenever activity is being performed, there are 2 things happening simultaneously. One, the soul is contaminated by this information, that's number 1. And secondly, as I told you in the last class, there is a flow of subtle matter from cosmos to the Karman body, which is present in our system, Along with the soul, there is a Karman body we have, and the Tejas body we have. So there is a flow of subtle matter into the Karman body. and this subtle matter again carries the same information as the information stored in the soul. So these two things happen simultaneously, and this is known as ashrav. And as I said, ashrav is caused by the activities of the soul. Then the second tattva, or the second fundamental truth, is bandh, or bondage of karma. This inflowing subtle matter is bonded with the existing karman body by actions of passions. Passions like anger, ego, deceitfulness and greed, these four passions, and then there are quasi-passions. So these passions cause the incoming karma matter to bond with the karman body. This is called bondage or bandh. And bandh again is of two kinds, a bhava bandh and a dravya bandh. In the sense that there is a bondage in the soul itself, bhava bandh, and the karma which is bound there is known as a bhava karma. So bhava karma is bound with the soul, again which is in the form of some kind of information, as I told you earlier. And there is a dravya bandh, means the actual physical subtle matter is bound with the karman body because of active passions in the soul. If the passions are not present, I am just taking an example, then the inflowing karma matter will not bond with the karman body. It is flowing in perfectly all right, but then it flows in and then flows out back. It does not bond with the karman sharir or karman body if passions are not active. This is very important to understand, that it is mainly due to passions, or the passions are the main reason for bonding of our karma. So if you are able to control these passions, then you will be bonding less amount of karma, probably no karma. But that stage is very difficult to achieve normally in our case. But that does not mean that this cannot be done. It can be done, as we will study just now. Then this bondage of karma is continuous unless special efforts are made to prevent it, as I told you. It's continuous because we are constantly engaged in some kind of activity, either mentally or verbally or physically. Some kind of activity is always going on, and therefore there is a regular inflow of subtle karma matter. And because we also have patience active, or normally we have some kind of patience active, either patience or quasi-patience, then these will cause bondage. So bondage normally, in the normal situation I am talking, is a continuous process. And it can be stopped, as I told you, if you can control your patience. The next fundamental truth or tattva is samar. Now this stage comes very late, very rarely in life, that you can stop inflow of karma. What causes flow of karma? Inflow of karma? Activities of mind, body and speech. So the reverse is there, that you can have the state of samar if you can stop these activities. Now that's a very difficult thing to do. You don't engage in any mental activity, no thoughts, any kind of thought, or no verbal, don't speak either loudly or murmuring, or even just thinking of words is a language. So no kinds of speech or no kind of physical action. It's very difficult state to achieve. Normally, even if you are not doing any physical activity or you are not speaking, your mind is working. His mind is always thinking, it is constantly thinking, and it's very difficult to stop the activity of mind. That's a very difficult task. Normally a person is not able to do that. So therefore the mental thinking and mental activity is going almost all around the clock. Even probably in your dreams your mind is acting. So there is a constant inflow of karma. So samar is a very difficult task, how to control the activities. This is done by special efforts, and a person has to make special efforts for this. The normal state of being cannot control the activities. So there are religious practices which are austerities. Austerities means tapasya, sadhana, upasana, those kinds of things, and meditation, contemplation, and so on, which can stop activities of your mind, for the time being. So for that duration of time in which suppose the mind is not working, there is samar. You don't invite karma matter to inflow into your system. Then there is concept of nirjara, which is shedding of karma. This is very important. All through we have been talking of karma, bonding of karma, effects of karma, experiences of karma, and so on, as if karma is everything in our life and we can't get rid of these things. And if you can't do that, normally there can be no nirvana, that's impossible. So the most important thing, if you want to proceed towards nirvana, is to nirjara, shedding karma. Stopping is one thing and shedding is another. Shedding means whatever karma are present in this system, you have to remove them. Now how do you do it? The concept here is, I'll give an example. Suppose you have water tank and there is inflow of water into this tank and you want to empty the tank. What should you do? You drain out the water. But the draining out water will not empty the tank unless you stop the inflow. So that is samar. So stopping inflow is samar, and then draining out water is nirjara. Then only you can empty the tank. Similarly, if you want to remove all the karmas which are attached to the soul, you have to do two things. Number one, first stop inflow. And I told you the methods by which the inflow can be stopped. Then how to remove these karmas which are existing? That's again by meditation, tapasya, penance, austerities, austere measures, these things, These things then, in a way allows the soul to use its power to remove the karma. And the way the karmas are removed are again of two kinds, what called as a bhav nirjara and a dravya nirjara. Bhav nirjara means those information which are stored in the soul in some way, that information is being deleted. You understand like this. So that, and once that information is in the soul is deleted, automatically the karmas which are physically present in the karman body also shed off. There is always a balance or equilibrium between the bhav karma and the dravya karma. There is always, equilibrium is always maintained, So if you remove bhav karma by some means, automatically that part of dravya karma will also be removed. And vice versa, if you remove the dravya karma by some means, by some measure, austere measure, then the corresponding bhav karma shall also be removed, so that a equilibrium is maintained all the time between dravya karma and bhav karma. This is a very important principle. So nirjara, if you talk of nirjara, then the major part of nirjara can take place only through bhav nirjara. Now that is the power of the soul to remove that information. So we had to activate, or we had to allow our soul to act, and that can be done only through controls, which we must exercise on our patience, on our activities. And this is done with the help of meditation, particularly meditation. Bhagavan Mahari used to meditate only. That was the form of tapasya he had. He used to meditate all the time. When you meditate, what happens? You are with your soul. Normally, people like us, are conscious of our body, and we are not conscious of ourselves all the time. We might be conscious, or we may go into that kind of state when we are conscious of the soul, but that is very momentarily. So that does not help very much, If you reach a state where you forget your body and go beyond your mind, because the mind is the main hurdle, in reaching to the soul. So you have to calm the mind, you have to subside the mind, you have to silence the mind, so that once this is done, then you are able to experience the presence of your soul. So that's a very difficult situation, a very difficult thing to do. But if you do it, then you experience your soul. You experience the soul, and you reach a state where you forget your body, you forget your mind, and you remember nothing else but the soul. In that state, soul can exercise powers to remove whatever information is there, slowly, not at once, So that also takes time. Bhagavan Mahavir took 12.5 years to reach a state of omniscience, Keval Gyan. So it depends upon the individual, of course, individual case, but it's a time-consuming process normally. When the karmas can be removed, there is another point, The moment you bind karma, you cannot remove the karma. I told you earlier, there are 4 features of karma: the pradesh bandh, prakriti bandh, sthiti bandh, anubhag bandh. What is the sthiti bandh? I told you the karma is born for a certain duration of time, and only after that period of time that the karma becomes active or can be made active. You can understand this with the help of an example. For example, you have a deposit in the post office. The system in the post office is, suppose the deposit for 10 years. Then the system is like this, that suppose you cannot withdraw the money for the first 3 years. There is a moratorium. You cannot withdraw your money. It's your money, but you cannot withdraw it. After 3 years, if you have a demand or if you have a certain amount, it is possible for you to withdraw the money as per rules. So you can do that from 4th year to 10th year. And after 10 years, that is the maturity period, the whole money is yours, You can withdraw the entire money. Same as the system with karma. When a karma bonds with the karman body, that karma remains in a moratorium state or period for certain duration of time. And during that time, the karma is inactive. It does not exercise any influence on the soul. At the same time, normally it cannot be shed off. It doesn't become active. Maybe that, in the state of deep meditation this happens, I do not know. But there is a moratorium period in which the karma normally will not become active. After that moratorium period, up to the maturity period. During that duration, karma can be made active if there is a cause, and the cause is in the form of a nimit normally. So if the soul comes across a nimit or a cause, then that karma gets rise. If the karma rises, and then you have or experience its effect. So this is the system how the nirjara takes place. Nirjara can take place voluntarily, involuntarily, both ways. Involuntary rising of karma means the karma rises after the maturity period, and so happens when the karma gives its fruits or its effect, that part of karma sheds off the karman body. This is the system. So once the karma has given its fruits, or we experience the effects of that karma sheds off the karman body. So that way there is a continuous nirjara also, but this is savipak nirjara, that in which we experience the fruits of that karma and then it sheds off. There is another way which we call as avipak nirjara. It's voluntarily, as I told you earlier, with the help of austere measures, tapasya, sadhana, upasana, meditation, you can make the karma rise before the maturity period without experiencing its fruits. It sheds off the karman body without giving any experience kinds of things. So this is avipak nirjara. Both nirjaras are possible, but the avipak nirjara is possible only with the special efforts, which had to be done. And this normally is possible. It's possible for the householder layman also, but generally this takes place with monks, who are able to do those kinds of exercise and activities. Then we have the last tattva or fundamental truth as moksha, liberation. If we are able to eliminate all the karmas, then the soul gets liberated. That is, the connection between the soul and matter is snapped. There is no more connection between the two. Soul becomes free of karma. In that state, this is called liberated soul. It's no more bound with matter, either in the form of karma or any other body. But before that, I told you earlier also, there is another state where you destroy only the ghatiya karma. Only ghati karma are destroyed. And the aghatiya karma are still in balance. That means the soul is still embodied, it is in the body form, but because the ghatiya karmas have been destroyed, now the natural powers of the soul are being expressed, and the soul becomes a keval jnani. Now the soul experiences infinite knowledge, infinite darshan, and perfect bliss and infinite spiritual power. Those natural powers of the soul are being now experienced, and the person now experiences the truth. He is able to see the whole lok. He is able to see the past, he is able to see the future. He is able to see the minutest part like Paramanu. He can see the biggest part like lok. And he knows the truth, He doesn't have to do anything. The truth is reflected in his soul, So he at once can answer any question, any doubt he can clarify. He doesn't have to do any effort, It is natural, spontaneous. So that kind of state is reached when the ghatiya karma are destroyed by the means I told you earlier, and this we will discuss again in our later lectures. And an arihant, as I told you, is a Tirthankar when he teaches the religion. For that, he has to bond the Tirthankar Nam Karma. I am not going to give those details here, but the Tirthankar teaches the religion. And whatever I am telling you is because he has taught us his teachings. It is based on teachings that I am talking to you. And at the end of life, when the ayu karmas are over, okay, the agatya karmas are also being destroyed, and the soul gets liberated. And in that state, then the soul has no body, no kind of body, it's pure soul, and it once migrates to the top of lok known as the Siddha Shila. There, then it resides there for all the time. And there have been infinite numbers of such souls who have liberated and are now living in the Siddha Shila, that particular region of the lok. And there is a continuous process of, in the lok as a whole, there are souls which are being liberated and migrating to Siddha Shila. But it is told that in our region, for example, on this earth, let us take that, the liberation is not possible now in this period of 5th ara and 6th ara. And I told you what aras are, But the soul can go to heaven, and from there, it can go to a region where liberation is possible. So I have given you a brief idea about the 7 tattvas today, and the fundamental truths, and how liberation is possible. Thank you.